Welcome to Mr. Smith and Brother BrothaBluZen, the Between Cousins show. I'm Mr. Smith.
And I'm BrothaBluZen. Today I'm going to go over what is called the five elements in traditional Chinese medicine. I thought this is a good area to start for our first, should I say, the first teaching videos that I plan to go through with everyone is to start with the five elements, what the five elements are. And then all subsequent videos will go into each different element. But I want to give everybody, the audience and yourself, Mr. Smith, an idea of what the five elements are, kind of give a little bit of a background on it.
Right.
So let's just jump right into it. All right, the five elements. So get up here. So the five elements are metal, earth, water, fire, wood. Um, are basically traditionally the five elements according to traditional Chinese medicine. Now, not to get them mistaken with the Ayurvedic, which only has four elements, which is earth, uh, water, air, and fire. Right now, air is going to be more considered like metal. And I'm not sure why Ayurvedic specifically doesn't have a wood in there because I think it's wood would be more of a consciousness. That's what it kind of even in traditional Chinese medicine, wood is the only element with consciousness. Because you think about it, it's plants, it's trees, and when it comes to the body, it is the tendons, the ligaments would actually give the body motion. So we'll talk about that as I go through these slides. But I have these set up a specific way. Um, when if you ever see like I have a coin here, and it actually has. Hopefully, you guys will be able to see the five elements on here. Um, Actually, let me get a different coin that I have. Share that. So if you see these, so at the top is metal. Um, at the right is, let me see. Am I right? You're right. I can't tell. So then one side is would be water. The other side would be fire. Fire is always rising up. So this would be fire. That would be water, and then this bottom one is wood. Now the middle, earth is always in the middle. So the square in the middle is actually earth. So that's why I set this up this way, just so everyone kind of understands that. Um, Maybe too much of an explanation, but I like to give information that people can go and use um, and gives you a better understanding of what it is I'm talking about and why I do things the way that I do it. Now, each element has different attributes. So the first attribute is the environment. So the environment for wood is wind, and you'll see why here in a minute. Fire is heat. That kind of makes sense. Earth is damp. So if you think about whenever you make like dirt um, wet, you put moisture on dirt, it becomes damp. You get a lot of dampness. Metal is dry, and water is cold. And you'll see how this kind of coincides with the seasons. So the seasons for wood is spring. That's when things are sprouting. That's when things are growing. And so the reason the wind is the environment is because that's when the wind is kind of blowing and it's moving like seeds from trees. It's blowing like if you ever see like a tumbleweed rolling around, tumbleweed is actually just a dried up plant that is actually dropping. It drops seeds as it's rolling around. So that's how some plants actually germinate and I guess regrow. Fire is summer, so it goes in the order of wood, fire, earth, metal, water. That's actually the from a season perspective, that's the journey around the sun. Then you got late summer is earth. Um, then you have, and we'll actually talk about the control cycles and the nurturing cycles of the elements as well, and you'll see how they coincide with this. Metal is autumn, so we're in the fall right now. So it's right now we're in metal season. Everything is drying up, and then water is winter. So you think about it, you get snow, you get all kinds of very cold outside, and then when the spring starts to come, then it turns into basically melts into water. The directions. Our wood would be east, the direction the sun comes up. Fire would be south. Earth is in the middle, kind of like what I showed you on the coin. And that's the reason, that's the main reason the coin is set up the way that it is that, east, south, west, north, etc. And then the Earth is in the middle. Metal is in the west. So wood and metal are opposite of each other. Fire and water are opposites of each other, right? And then you got Earth in the middle, and then water is north. Each element has a yin organ and a yang organ um, when it comes to the body. So it has associations to the body. The yin organ for wood is liver. The yin organ for fire is heart. Earth would be spleen. Metal is the lungs, and then the kidneys is water. Is the yin organs. And when I say yin organ, what I'm talking about is a solid organ. It's not anything that's hollow. It's going to be more solid, more dense of an organ. The yang organs for wood is gallbladder. Yang organ for fire is small intestine. Yang organ for earth is stomach, and yang organ for metal is large intestine, and then water, it will be the bladder. So you got the kidney bladder. Now the interesting thing about water, so the kidney actually has you have two kidneys. You have one hot, one cold. One actually regulates the heat in the body. One regulates the cold in the body. I can't remember if I talk about that later on in here, but I thought I'd mention that. But even though one regulates one and the other, it's still they're still both solid organs. The tissue, and when I talk about the tissue, is like the parts of the body that the element is associated with. So for wood, it's the tendons, the sinews, the fascia, all the connective tissues, all that stuff. And that's why I say that's the tissue that helps with the body's animation, helps with the body's movement, right? You wouldn't be able to, if you didn't have the tendons in here, your hand would just sit there. The muscles do help, but they need something to attach to the bone to actually move stuff around. Fingers, right? You want everything to be loose. A lot of times when you're tight, it has something to do with more, you may have some calcification within the tendons and sinews, stuff like that. The fire would be the blood vessels. That kind of makes sense because you got the heart pumps blood through the body. Earth is the muscles, so the actual muscles themselves. So when you're looking to gain weight, there's certain, that's why they look at certain foods that you would want to eat. You do want to be careful, especially when you're trying to either gain weight or lose weight, is you want to make sure the foods are digestible by the stomach. But the earth is associated with muscles. Metal is the skin and hair. That's why, if you think about it in the fall time, your skin seems to be a lot drier than it is in the rest of the time of the year. You do get some dryness in the summer, but that's more the heat and burning. But I notice that myself. It's like I get usually a lot drier scalp. I get, skin seems a little bit drier. I got to put more lotion on. I don't quite feel as hydrated, but I don't think it has anything to do with really hydration. It's just the time in the season. And then water is bone. So you talk about bone marrow. That's the best time to do work, focus on your bone health. The bodily fluid for wood would be tears. For fire is sweat. That kind of makes sense. Earth is saliva. Metal is mucus. Think about wintertime when you get catch a cold or you have allergies, seasonal allergies, you got a lot of mucus that comes up. And then water is urine. The sense organs. So the eye, wood is the eyes. Fire is the tongue, more of taste. Take a drink of water real quick. Speaking of dry mouth and dry tongue. So, I mean, if you think about it, the tongue is kind of like tells I guess the small intestine and the stomach is like, hey, this is what's coming in. This is what I'm sensing. And then you get the saliva and start producing the digestive enzymes. but the tongue is it's the first thing that dries out whenever you get too much heat. You start to feel dry tongue, dry mouth. So that one actually makes sense to need too much fire in the body. Metal is nose. I mean, anyone that catches a cold or has any type of seasonal allergies knows that it's like, yeah, it's a it's a time of year where it's metal and it's trying to remove stuff from the body. Large intestine and lungs are the uh, largest, um, I wouldn't say immune, but detoxification organs. So that's why we get mucus in the nose, and then release through the other way. And then water is ear. So one thing with a lot of people don't realize with the ears is like if you got one clogged, you feel your equilibrium is off. So water element actually is associated with your equilibrium. So we talk about the two different types of the two different kidneys, right? You got the right kidney, left kidney, hot kidney, warm, cold kidney. Same thing with your equilibrium. Um, the taste is sour for wood, bitter for fire. Earth is sweet, metal is pungent, and then water is salty. The smell for wood is rancid. The smell for fire is burned. That one actually makes a lot of sense. The one for earth is sweet-ish, so it's like a sweet taste. And then metal is rank. Think about metal. I mean, that's the time of the season where everything's kind of falling away and dying, so everything kind of smells more rank. And then water is putrid. Would be the smell. The sounds for wood is shouting. For fire would be laughing. And we'll see this. I'm gonna in the next few slides, I'm gonna go into like the different attributes as far as how it relates to us, our personalities, and that type of stuff. And you'll see how these kind of fit in there. Earth would be singing. Metal is crying, and then water is groaning. There are healing sounds in traditional Chinese medicine, or should I say Qigong. There are healing sounds that are associated with each organ, or should I say each element. And you use those to kind of more tonify the meridians and tonify the organs themselves. So, and we'll, like I said, I'm going to be doing some future videos on each different element, and then we'll go more in depth into the actual sounds, and I'll go through a couple exercises with everyone for that you could do those sounds with, and how to use them. Emotions for wood is anger. So you think about it, shouting. Yeah, what do you do when you're angry? Is like a lot of times you shout. Fire is joy. Earth is worry. Metal is grief, and water is fear. Mental quality. So wood, sensitivity. Fire is creativity. Earth is clarity. Metal, intuition. And water is spontaneity. Kind of, think about spontaneity as I go with the flow, right? And then the life cycle. Wood would be considered birth. I think if I go into that here, we'll talk about that as I think as we get into the seasons. But I'm trying to remember what else is in this presentation. Fire is youth. Earth is adulthood. The metal as an age is old age, and then water is death. So wood, physical constitution, and its nature. So physical appearance. So when I talk about physical constitution and nature, what I'm talking about is every person has a constitutional element. We all have all the elements, right? We have all the different organs in our bodies, but we all have a constitutional element. And mine happens to be wood. A lot of and I know a lot of people. Some people have water, some people have earth, some people are, and there's a different specific appearance. So for wood, it's a tall, sinewy body, so usually lean, tall, and it's not like super freakishly tall. Like you can be, but you normally most wood element people will have a tall, lean body, small head, long face. So if you notice, my head is like an oval face, broad shoulders, and a small waist. Try to keep my waist small through diet, but for the most part, I've never really had a big waist. Small, nicely formed hands. My fingers are symmetrically. Um, my feet, my toes are all symmetric. Normal linked fingers, knotted. So I got the knotted fingers. So everything kind of shows up, all the joints and stuff show up and knotted joints. Now, for balanced wood, from I guess, a mental and a, how would I put it, social perspective, a balanced wood would be very confident, strong, independent, and intuitive. They're patient. They can be kind and understanding of themselves and their goals. Relaxed and harmonious, merciful, unselfish, creative and free flowing in self expression, and maintain healthy and proper boundaries. Now, with everything in life, everything has a yin and a yang. You talked about the organs having a yin and yang. Everything in life has a yin and yang, hot and cold, right? Hot is would be a yang, and then cold would be yin. So for wood, a yin wood nature or wood yin nature would be extremely insecure, overly cautious, right? They will worry, has a weak sense of own abilities and potential, not very assertive, unsure of their own identity, and they have weak boundaries. They kind of let people walk all over them, very timid. They lack confidence and they display considerable doubt. So they have a lot of self doubt. Now, yang wood nature acts irritable, impatient, intolerant, rude, stubborn, more of a selfish type of person, very domineering and controlling, angry and aggressive. They are overachievers, easily frustrated and depressed, and they bully others. Now, you can always be swinging one side or the other, so it's not like as I go through these each different element, you can't really take these as, oh my god, that person is just a wood element and they're just this, and they're just, oh, they're so insecure, so they're very young. You're always swinging the pendulum, right? It's depending on the level of your emotions for that day, or what's going on that day, how you feel that day. So you can always be swinging one way or the other, and the idea is to, and what I will do is I'll go back to previous slide real quick. The idea is to always strive for, okay, today I'm confident, and catching yourself out of balance. This isn't to sit there. This is not a judgment on anyone. Whenever I go over this stuff, it's more of a looking at yourself in a self perspective. It's like, okay, I'm a wood element or fire element or whatever it is. It's like my goal is to, oh, you know what, I'm not very confident today. I lost my confidence today, and understanding why you lost your confidence. And if you're relaxed and harmonious, and am I merciful today? Am I unselfish? Or am I being selfish? Right. So this is more of a blueprint for self reflection than it is for a judgment of others. All right, fire. So fire is the next element as we journey around the sun. Physical constitution of, or should I say physical attributes of fire, very slim, athletic, or well proportioned upper back, shoulders, buttocks, thighs, and abdomen. They have a small pointy head and a thin face, a pointed chin, small hands and feet. A lot of times, if you look at a wood person, their face will look like a flame, like the shape of a flame. A lot of times they have like wide teeth, and their hair can be very curly, or scanty. Or actually, sometimes fire people can have no hair on their head, right? They, in a sense, kind of joke around and say they kind of burned it off. It was too much fire. But yeah, so they can be bald, or they can have a lot of curly hair. Long, slender fingers and pointed tips. So they're gonna have like, my hands are, I would say normal size for me. They actually fit my body size. But you might see a fire person and they may have this long finger, and it's like really thin and pointed at the top. And a lot of times may have, the nails become pointed. They actually grow out pointy like that as well. Um, Fingernails can be long and narrow with a convex curve, form the base to the tip. And then a balanced nature for wood, or for fire, sorry, would be they're very trusting, they're open minded, they're complacent and social, unconcerned about wealth, fond of beauty, love self and others, very expressive of affection, Calm, peaceful, happy, very lively, spontaneous, fun to be with. They're more of like the life of the party is what I like to call them, and also the hostess with the mostest when it comes to fire element. Yin fire nature, they're very solemn and depressed, lack interest in life, tendency towards isolation, feels unloved and unlovable. Yang fire nature, arrogant, ignorant, or and troublesome. Could be restless, excitable, talk excessively, um, giggling excessively. Could be a little bit more young. Over enthusiastic and exaggerate often. Displays foolish and careless behaviors. Overconfident, slightly lazy, irresponsible, and less than truthful. One other note that I would say for fire element that I mean I did not really put this up here, but something that I've observed. My son is a fire element. I work with a lot of different people, and even within the dating scene, meeting fire elements is fire elements will tend to go, and then just crash for 2 3 days. And it's like, and it's not, and I'm over exaggerating as far as the 2 or 3 days, but they're ones that could sleep for 10 hours straight and then get up and just go and not sleep, and then all of a sudden, okay, then they just crash. So they're interesting, as they like to burn the midnight oil, as I like to say. So Earth, physical constitution and nature. So physical attributes of Earth, so can have a subtle shade of yellow in the complexion, so much large body, large head, triangular shaped face. They usually got the wide jaw. Um, I got a thin jaw, but usually it's like they got that chiseled face. Um, well developed shoulders and back, large abdomen, strong thighs and calf muscles. Usually the people with like you call them, they got stumps. A lot of times people with big legs, and it's not, I'm not saying fat legs or anything like that. It's just the nice thick legs is usually going to be an earth element. Short, thick proportioned hands. Um, and then fingernails are short, flat with triangular shaped curvature pointed at the base. Now, the balanced earth nature, they're very quiet, stable, and peaceful, unconcerned about fame or wealth, calm, generous, forgiving, sincere, and unambitious, open minded, analytical, logical, practical, kind, gentle, earnest, and well mannered, adaptable to change, pleasant, sweet, sympathetic, caring, and able to maintain healthy boundaries. The yin earth nature uh, worries endlessly. That's actually a attribute of Earth is worry. Suspicious, self-centered, think too much, and rarely follow through. Has difficulty nurturing self or others. Yang Earth nature is like they seem to cling to others, codependencies, pushy, possessive. See, dominates in passive aggressive ways and limits the independence of others. So metal physical constitution and nature. So metal physical attributes can have a subtle shade of white in their complexion, have a relatively small head with a square face and jaw. So it's going to be more of their face is going to be more of the square as opposed to the chiseled, just the big jaw like the earth. Broad and square shoulders, strong muscular build, flat abdomen. Fingers are shorter than the palm. So like my fingers are probably about the same size as my palm if I were to look at it. Versus theirs would be more of a metal would be okay, fingers like shorter than the palm, so it would be usually the smaller fingers. Um, Fingernails are long rectangular and slightly round shaped curvature at the base. A balanced metal nature, process and release emotional baggage easily. Able to grow in knowledge and wisdom by gathering and releasing emotional bonds. Learns to grow from each experience of intimacy and connection. Participates fully in life. Forms new bonds without fear of loss, and are generous, just and bright. The yin metal nature, find it difficult to create lasting bonds. Fearful of establishing new relationships due to past losses and emotional trauma. They avoid joining with others and they withdraw from active social participation. Haughty, cold-hearted, jealous, cunning, and sneaky. Attempts to attain happiness by possessing people and places and things. Now, young middle nature suppress emotions and holds on to grief. They tend to whine and complain, use new relationships to avoid the unprocessed grief of past relationships. Overly meticulous, independent, and strong, very, very, very strong-willed. Yeah, you know a metal person because they're very, very strong-willed, and they will say what they need to say. So it's like I kind of like going back and looking at the balance. So the idea again is to uh, find the balance in all of this. Be able to process your emotions. This is probably good for everyone, but metals specifically is like processing your emotions easily. Allowing yourself to grow. In knowledge and wisdom. Gathering and releasing emotional bonds. Um, Learning from experiences. Being generous. So it's okay. So water, physical constitution, and nature. Physical attributes of water are they have a little bit of a darker complexion, big round face, broad jaw. So like you see people with chubbier cheeks. Their faces a lot of times it's a rounder face, um, long back, large abdomen, and substantial body mass. So, and when I say body mass, it's just that usually proportioned. They're a lot. They're gonna have a little bit more mass on them than regular people. It has nothing to do with weight or anything like that. Because I've seen a lot of lean water people that are water constitution, but they do have a lot of a little bit more mass on them. Unbalanced and uneven physical features, and usually it's really very slightly, and it's usually with the fingers or the toes or the teeth or something. It's not usually anything that's very noticeable. Hands tend to be short in proportion and short fingers. Um, Fingernails are short trapezoidal shaped curvature with the short side at the base. So kind of a trapezoidal fingernails. Balanced water nature is skilled negotiators, not discouraged by difficulty, and do not take foolish risks. They're sympathetic. They're loyal to employers and friends. They are sensitive and intuitive, powerful, tender, and soft, firm will, and know their boundaries and limitations. They have a strong inner strength and strong faith in themselves. The yin water natures, they lack spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical energy, give up on life, surrender control of own destinies to inertia and external circumstances. They kind of just give up when things get difficult. Doing everything half-heartedly, not really putting their whole, I guess, their whole energy into something. They just kind of half-ass do it, and become easily discouraged by difficult challenges. The yang water nature are very ambitious overachievers who live under great stress. You're greedy, ruthless, cold-blooded, insidious, and sinister. They can be dominate others, and they tend to blame others for their problems. One of the main emotions or the main emotion out of balance emotion for water is fear. Um, and you can kind of see how that kind of comes into play in either both of these, right? So it's like become discouraged in difficult challenges. Yeah, you have a fear of failure, so you're like, no, I'm not going to do this. And then with the more of a yang side, they kind of overachieve. A lot of times, a water person would be that they would have that false bravado to where they would go, oh, I'm going to go jump off a cliff and into water or something. Like they would be tend to be those very risk takers to prove to themselves that they're not afraid, right? So it's like and this is all about balance and imbalances and finding the balance. And so with water, and I'll go back to this, is like when you look at when they're in balance, it's like they're very tender, they're soft, they got a firm will, they know their boundaries, they're intuitive, a strong inner strength, right? Strong faith in themselves. And they're not discouraged by difficulties, and of course they don't take foolish risks, which that which is a good thing. But when they're out of balance, and they're more young, they may take some risks that they wouldn't normally take if they were in a more balanced state. Um, so moving on. So the elemental creation and control cycle. So I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, where there's a creation cycle and then there's a control cycle, or the creation cycle is more of a nurturing cycle. And we'll start over here with wood. So wood, again, is gallbladder and liver. Liver's the yin organ, gallbladder's a yang organ. So wood it nurtures fire. So it actually feeds fire. Um, and fire burns wood to create earth. So that cycle is okay. Fire needs wood, so wood actually helps to flame the fire. Whenever you say you got a fire pit, or um, I guess a little, I guess bowl, whatever you want to call it. I guess they're all called fire pits. You always going to add more wood to it to increase the fire to make more heat. And then as that heat wood burns, it turns into ash, which basically turns into earth. Now the earth is a little bit more earth to metal. You're going to have the earth compressing. So as the earth compresses, it creates metal. It actually turns, they say that coal is turned into a diamond by pressure, right? So it creates a lot of pressure on the earth itself, and the earth kind of turns into, okay, you get this element, and you get not really an element, but like the minerals. So if you think about minerals, that's going to be more metal. And now metal will melt and make water. And and in order to understand how these work, is you have to have the control cycles, right? So you got the creation cycle. Wood create or nurtures fire. Fire creates earth. Earth creates metal. Metal creates water, and water actually, I would say, nurtures wood. So if you think about in the springtime, it's like, okay, I'm going to go put these seeds in the ground and I'm going to plant this. What is the first thing you put on it after it's already sitting in the earth? Is you put water. So water is what actually nurtures and helps plants to grow. But you need a control cycle. So we'll start with wood. So wood actually controls earth. And it's not really that it controls earth. If you think about it, when grass grows, it holds the earth down. When a tree or a plant grows, its roots grow out and it actually holds the earth and moves the earth around and actually grows through the earth. So it kind of controls the earth, which helps the earth to actually become more dense and more solid, as opposed to just being loose. And then you have fire, which controls metal. So fire would melt metal, or in the sense of we talked about the Ayurvedic, where air is considered metal. So when you have a volcano and it's basically burning earth, right? It's basically a volcano is just burning earth, and all the ashes and everything that goes into the air is minerals, which is metal. So there's two different ways that earth, it can either melt it to be more of a liquid form, turning into water, because water is made of minerals as well. Or it could be in the air that we breathe in, molecules, minerals, oxygen, carbon, all that stuff is all considered metal. Then you get to earth. Earth, if you think about it, you get like a lake, or you got like a river, or you have a pond or anything like that. What holds the water there? Earth. So you have earth surrounding it, and it holds in the water. So earth actually controls the water. You would build a dam with more earth. And then for metal, metal controls wood. You think about how do you cut down a tree? You get an axe, right? Metal controls wood. It's also a reflective element, but in this sense, it will control earth. Or what it will do, it will actually, because a lot of times as a living being, a living breathing thing, it's like, okay, this needs these minerals, it needs some type of fertilization. So then in that fashion also, it actually controls wood because it helps it to grow as well. So it's not necessarily a negative thing as far as control. It is just more of a this is kind of the cycle and how they work. And then we get to water, and water And I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer, controls fire. So it keeps the fire under control, um, and puts it out in some senses. And this is gonna be the last slide I was gonna go over. I kind of wanted to go over this. As I said before, I'm gonna do a separate should I say video on the 5 different elements and each individual element. But I wanted to give an idea of how I look at when I'm talking to someone and trying to I guess diagnose symptoms or diagnose whatever it is that they may be going through, whether they're I woke up at 11 p.m. and I couldn't sleep anymore, like what's going on, from a meridian standpoint. And so this is called an orrery clock, or the rhythm, natural rhythm of the of should I say of your actual organs or the elements in the body. And we'll just start at the top. So at noon, so basically from 11 to 1, heart. And actually, let me start at 7 a.m. So it's like I like so I can use this analogy that I learned from my grandmaster. So 7 to 9. So it's like we talk about, everyone always talks about fasting and okay, and breaking your fast and time to break your fast. And in all reality, most people would want to break their fast between 7 and 9, because that's when the stomach is most active, and that's when you want to do your proteins and have a good meal. Like actually have your, probably the biggest meal of the day should be breakfast, because you went through the night and you actually, if you did it right, you fasted throughout the night, and then you want to get up and you want to have breakfast. And then 9 to 11, that's when okay, the spleen starts to convert the food that you just ate into chi, and it's good for clear thinking. And then from noon to 1, that's when blood circulation, high energy, and that's about the time we eat lunch. And then from 1 to 3 is the time to small intestine. So it's like a time to absorb food, kind of a low energy. That's probably when a lot of times when people want to take naps. I know we do associated with, oh, I just had a large lunch. And that is part of it too, but it's just a natural time of day where it's like, okay, it's midday, I'm going to take a nap. And then from 3 to 5 is going to be bladder. That's kind of like where energy is restored, liquid waste is released, and it's the best time to do any type of work, any type of studying, because it's when you can focus the most. And then from 5to 7, that's kidneys, and that's where when we store the nutrients, we build more bone marrow, and that's usually about supper time. So I mean, if you notice, I mean, there's only a few hours in between. 7 to 9, you want to eat. From 11 to 1, you want to eat, and then from 5 to 7 is the next time to eat, and then you don't eat again for 12 hours, right? So that's where you really should be fasting, is that 12 hours of fasting. And now there's no hard and fast that this has to be the way, or this is a circadian rhythm. I know that there's some differences in that, and there's different schools of thoughts of like waiting till noon to eat, skipping breakfast, and they all work differently for different people. Some people, certain things work the best for. But this is kind of the rule of thumb that I try to use myself. Do I always eat between 5 and 6? Usually, if I skip lunch, then I'll be having dinner between 5 and 6. If I did have lunch, a lot of times I'll skip dinner because I'm usually not that hungry. But moving on, so from 7 to 9 is pericardium. So we didn't talk about these next two, pericardium and triple burner. So those are also fire associated, more of a meridians. And I'll do a video on those whenever I go over the fire element. But they're more of electricity is more of what they are. So pericardium is a heart protector. It's a light, some light reading at night. It's a good time for sex, good time for self-love, good time for doing what you enjoy, because it's also the joy meridian. And then again, well, I'll talk about that a little bit more in the future. But that's a good time to start. You're winding down. Okay, I've had my dinner. Okay, now it's time to just relax and enjoy. Um, and then you're getting ready, because bringing yourself down to actually go to bed, and let the body just start doing its own, I guess, cycles of, I guess, digestion and cleansing the body itself. And then we get into triple burner. So more of endocrine, endocrine, and metabolic balancing, and you start getting sleepy. So that's usually between 9 and 11 is when you should be getting sleepy. And then 11 o'clock jumps in, and that's the time you really want to be asleep. It releases the bile, you get cellular repair, and builds blood vessels, and that is gallbladder time. Um, and then let me see, liver is from 1 to 3, so that's when you should be in deep sleep. It's time for detoxing the blood, rest and recovery, and planning. And then metal is from 3 to 5 would be lungs, deep sleep, dreams, memory, detoxing the lungs. And then large intestine would be from 5 to 7 a.m. And this is when you want to wake up, you want to release the bowels, and this is the best time to be doing meditation, um, or any type of deep thinking. You want to get up in the morning and kind of get your day started with restfully. Now, the interesting thing that I kind of want to point out here is a lot of times we tend to be, up past 11, up past 1 on a regular basis, or we're eating food at this time of day. And then we wonder, well, okay, we can't sleep, or, oh, I'm having these dreams and nightmares and stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, you ate, too late. There is really something to that. And the thing is that the reason that is that you can't get into your dreams will end up being very awkward because you can't get into that deep REM sleep because your body is using all of its energy to try to do some digestion. And that's really not the time for the body to be digesting stuff. That's a time for the body to be repairing itself. And so you end up overexerting the energy, which causes you to not be able to sleep. Now, there are also some spiritual reasons. You wake up at 3 in the morning, they say that, okay, you're getting a message from the angels or God. And that is a time for deep sleep and detoxing. But the metal is also a good time for meditation. It's a time when we are most connected to, I guess, spirituality or our higher selves, or whatever your school of belief is, when you would receive messages. So that it makes sense as to, okay, if you were dealing with something earlier in the day, say you were angry about something earlier in the day, you may have trouble sleeping because around 1 o'clock you might wake up and just be like, oh, or frustration. You'll wake up because of emotions as well. So it's this this is an idea, kind of gives you an idea of like, okay, well, this is what's going on, why I can't sleep, or why I can't eat, or why um, I'm having these vivid dreams. You can always go to this. Now with this, and again, I'll go into a little bit deeper teaching of this because when I get into the meridians, I guess I won't go over it right now. I always want to give way too much information on this stuff. Um, but again, this is the aura we will. This is kind of like what I follow for my own personal self, and I've been doing that for a few years. And so, the idea, I guess, the best analogy of using the Ori clock is, when it comes to your diet, is in the morning, 7 to 9, you want to eat like a king. For lunch, you want to eat like a prince, and then for dinner, you want to eat like a pauper. So it's more of you don't want to eat a big meal in the evening. Usually, you want the big meal to be in the morning time, first thing in the morning, and then you want to have a good lunch. It doesn't have to be anything big. You really don't want the lunch to be bigger than your breakfast, but it can be if you skip breakfast and you're doing that type of intermittent fasting, as they call it. Sure, have the bigger meal at lunchtime. But if you're trying to get yourself in a rhythm with the elements and with the uh, um, I guess your circadian rhythm is, I would recommend trying to go this route where you're having a good breakfast, making sure you're getting a breakfast, and it doesn't have to be between 7 and 9 specifically, but at least even if it's after 9, have a breakfast. Um, Having coffee in the morning, a lot of people may do that, and that's great. But the caffeine, what it does is it takes your stored energy and uh, uses that, and so that you need to replenish it anyway. So it's always good to still have some breakfast so that you can get some more energy going. So other than that, that is the end of the presentation. And What do you think? What kind of questions you got, sir?
Yeah, I just I was looking at that chart at the very beginning, and I was just looking at it just kind of abstractly and
Which
just
chart?
the very chart with the five elements and how you listed the each of the elements and then what they correspond to with the environment
I'll bring
and
it
all
up right
that,
now.
and it's very interesting. Just looking at and what my drew to my eye was the Earth, and just looking at everything that lined up in the Earth column, and I was like, wow. So it definitely made sense.
Hold on, let me pull that guy back up real quick, sir. All right, you talking about this
Yeah.
one?
So when I looked at Earth, I was just like, okay, damp, late summer, middle of the directions. I didn't really understand the spleen one, but I was just kind of
The
looking at
spleen.
all these. Yeah,
Well,
looking at.
that's the yin organ. That's the
Okay,
organ associated with the Earth.
gotcha. So, once I started looking at the damp late summer and then the middle for the directions, I was just like, ah, it just for some reason it clicked in my head and it just kind of seemed like it made sense. Um, and it's just amazing just looking at this chart also, and then just remembering conversations that me and you have had just about
Mhm.
these things in general, where you're like, oh, that's metal, and I'm just like, okay, but when you look at this chart and like think about those conversations, it's like, oh, that's you
Yeah,
know,
this will. So this was. I was tending to wanting this to be more of general. And I
hmm
know. I mean, I give a. I like to give a lot of information. That way, I can kind of separate them and go into each element. And then you get a deeper understanding of the element on it as itself. Um, specifically like the one thing I always look at is like the muscles. Like a lot of people, like when it comes to fitness, like the best time to build muscle is during Earth season, which is late summer.
ah,
That's the time when you want to do the heavy lifting. That's when you want to build mass. The
okay,
rest of the year, there's going to be a little bit different as well as far as fitness wise. In the summertime for during fire, you want more cardio. That's the best time for cardio. Um, but the
hmm
best time to build muscle is usually earth season, and then even metal going into metal season is you want to mix it more of aerobic because again that's the lungs. So we'll talk about this stuff once
right,
I get into that type of stuff. And then like in the water season is like that's when you want to build like a lot of standing and um, holding postures. That's the
right,
best time to really be doing that is during the water season because it builds strength in the bones, right? All that compression and stuff. So there's so many different ways of looking at this, and I hope that I'm able to I guess communicate this and get the information out
yeah,
correctly. And I know that depending on who's looking at this and who's talking about this, um, you might see some differences. But I think this
different
stuff
opinions,
specifically is going to be more of a okay. This is pretty much how everyone sees the five elements. Now the healing sounds maybe a little bit different. The which ones might be different? The taste, shouting. Well, and I didn't bring this up here, so like depending
right.
on the lineage of the I guess kung fu studio or whatever it is you do, whether it's South Korean or whether it's Japanese or whether it's Chinese traditional Chinese medicine. There would be some animals associated with it, which I'll go into, and
Ah.
that stuff will be a little bit different, when we get into that.
I gotcha. So yeah, it just and then downward sounds that you were just talking about were shouting, laughing, singing, crying, and groaning. That's just kind of interesting as well. That those particular
Well, you see
um
how they associate with the emotion.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's look at
So like anger, it's like, oh, the best way to get rid of anger is to be like,
shout.
ah,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
get rid of it, right? It's like that's what you do when you're angry. You get louder. When you're joyful, you laugh. Have a good
Right.
time,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you worry, it's like a funny thing about worry. It's one of those things where it's like, what is the most soothing thing to worry? It's singing, sitting there. The thing when you were a baby, it's like maybe your mom sang you a song when you were a kid, or like if you went to, the sitter or whatever, they sang to you or put some music on lullaby, right? They talk about a lullaby, so it calms down worry. And then
Wow.
the
Okay.
grief, what do we do when we're grieving? We cry. We tend to cry when
Mm-hmm.
we have to let stuff go. Fear is like, like, what do you, like, you don't
Right.
know what to do. Fear is like one of those things where it's like you can either freeze up or you could take an action. And a lot of times it's like fear causes you to freeze up at first until you, okay, now I need to do this, right? You're just not sure because fear is like, out of all the emotions, I think fear is the one that I do not like. I don't like being afraid of things. And when I am afraid of something, I'm just like, oh, because it doesn't feel good. It feels very uncomfortable. Not that any of
Right.
these feel good,
Right.
right? But it's just for me, fear is one of those things where it's like, oh, it doesn't feel good at all, like in
No,
the body.
it doesn't. And also with fears, like just learning and looking at this chart and learning more about this stuff, and learning about how, you know, things that I've done myself, and it's like, okay, why was I afraid of that? What was the issue behind it? And maybe it was too much work, or it's too painful to do, or something. But looking in at myself and internalizing and kind of analyzing that, kind of, and that leads me kind of to my next question, or not really a question, was, you talked about the internal evaluation instead of like, looking at the wood and the metal and the water and all these different things, instead of like, oh, that person's this, but looking at like, yourself and saying, okay, I have sometimes have a tendency to do these things or whatever,
Yeah,
but looking at it and saying, okay, is that a good pattern for me to continue to do that? And when you start noticing these things, you're like, oh, I can change that. It's not something that you have to keep doing or keep following those same patterns. You can
exactly.
literally just change it, not do it
Well, it's
anymore.
about finding understanding within it,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where I think a lot of people tend to not go for the understanding and just eradicate it. I'm going to eradicate this because it's like I don't like fear. I'm going to eradicate it. Well, fear can actually be used as a what it was meant to be used for was a sensor for okay, there's something not right here. Right? That's
Mm-hmm.
really what fear was meant to be. It's supposed to be a warning. It's like, okay, you know what? If I jump off of this cliff, it's like I will probably die,
Right.
or if I drive, you know, super fast, and there's a possibility of me getting in an accident, right? It's like
Right.
fear keeps you from doing things that can possibly harm you, right? That's how
So,
you stay alive. Like
like a self-defense kind
yes,
of. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. But if you
but
let,
it can
uh-huh.
also freeze you up to not make a choice. It can keep you from moving forward in something, right?
Right.
I'm afraid, like us making this video. It's like, oh, I'm afraid that people won't like me, right? There's all kinds of different types of fear,
Right. Mm-hmm.
or and worry comes in there too. It's like, oh, you fear, you're afraid, and you worry. Now, what I do, in fact, I think one of the upcoming videos that we'll make
Mm-hmm.
is I'll actually do a video where I'm doing an actual session with somebody, and kind of do because what I do with everyone is I do elemental reading.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let me stop sharing this real quick.
Okay.
I do an elemental reading, and it's called a four pillar reading. And with the four pillar reading, I get their element for the bodily constitution, and then I get the element for their outward personality,
Mm-hmm.
how they are social self. And there's the elements associated with their natural self, and there's also it's like as you get older, there's the elder self one. And so when you start putting those together, you can kind of see it's like, well, physically, this is the emotion that um, usually manifests first, and then so they might
Mm-hmm.
be say that they might be a wood element, right? Their
Mm-hmm.
bodily constitution is wood element, but yet their social self is earth.
Ah,
So they're going to express frustration and anger as worry. That's how it's going to come out, but it really is starting out as frustration or anger,
that sounds like
right?
a combination of.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
And
Wow.
it's just how they express it. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
there's a way, there's the elemental expression, and then there's the elemental, okay, this is where everything starts from. This is like ground zero for um this emotion or this situation
Right.
kind of thing.
Another question I had on the orrery wheel, and there's a lot to that. There's just
Yeah.
like you said, a lot of information. So is something like that, as far as a new person that you're talking with, do you have them concentrate just on anything specific on that, or we will like just like start with mornings and just work that into a routine or
No,
anything like that, or
no. What I use the orrery wheel for more is with the meridians.
mm-hmm,
And so when I go to through each different element, I'll also discuss the meridians associated with it. I mean, which of the meridian would be like for wood, it would be liver, gallbladder meridian.
mm-hmm,
Um, what I do is when I start, say that someone comes in and they tell me that they're having, say like their upper back, having a lot of knots in their upper back, say that I'm working on them, and there's a meridian, small intestine meridian actually flows from the finger. I don't have no vision here. Hold on. From the pinky finger coming up the back of the arm, and it actually swivels down the back and then comes up the neck and then comes all the way to the ear.
oh,
So what ends up happening with the small intestine, it may not even be a small intestine issue. It could be coming from, if you look at this clock, right across from it is liver.
mm-hmm,
So they may be a wood element, but they're basically, what's happening is they're causing the small intestine meridian to be out of balance. Interesting thing is that gallbladder is right across from heart. The thing is that the no elements can actually um, do anything with the heart meridian. The heart meridian is basically protected. I call the pericardium meridian the heart protector. So pericardium meridian keeps all other meridians from taking any energy from the heart because that's the most important meridian.
mm-hmm,
So what ends up happening is either the spleen takes the brunt of it or the small intestine takes the brunt of it. So it just depends on what's going on with the person. But I
right,
use this from an emotional standpoint. Oh, okay. And then I'll take a look and I'll test for, okay, is this meridian out of balance, or that meridian is over energy, that meridian's under energy. Ah, okay. And then I start to see the big picture where it's kind of like a domino effect where it started off in the liver, and then it came over to small intestine, and then all of a sudden it started having bladder issues because of the lung, and it starts manifesting around the whole circle, right?
right,
This is just more in general. I wanted to show this more in general as far
right,
as, this is a, if you want to get into a specific rhythm in your life, it's like you want to follow a rhythm. You want to be consistently eating this way, following this process, and you want to make sure that you don't eat anything after 11. And,
right,
the biggest thing is that I kind of, I guess, kind of crack up about is that we tend to want to go out and party at night and
mm-hmm,
have a good time, and that seems to be the time when we're most active and we're drinking alcohol, eating a bunch of very heavy oil foods and stuff like that. And then we get home and we're wondering why. It's like, well, I can't sleep now. Well, yeah, you're eating. You're up past the time that your body wanted to start cleaning itself.
right,
Um, so your body never actually gets into that cycle. And I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, because I mean every once in a while, yeah, I stay up until past midnight. Like I don't, I do my thing. I have a
right,
good time and stuff.
right,
But when you're doing it on a consistent basis, that's when it starts to take a toll on your body and your whole. You get out of your rhythm,
right.
right?
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense because if you're doing things that are causing pain or discomfort in other areas, and you notice that, then you have an opportunity to make changes
Yeah.
to work on
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah, and the
hmm,
biggest thing that I tell people is that this is not about a judgment. This is not about do's and don'ts. It's about, okay, self-reflection, having a self-reflection, because the only way that anything changes in your life is you self-reflecting on it and you choosing to make those changes, not me coming and telling you you need to do this, you need to do that, because I could be totally wrong. I see things from one perspective, but I don't live anyone's life. I don't
right,
make choices for people. I'm not in anybody's mind. I can't. Whatever you share with me is what you chosen to share with me. But most people don't share everything, right? You
hmm,
think that they do. Some people do tend to overshare a bunch of stuff, but they're only sharing the stuff that they want you to know, or they want you to feel, an emotion about for them, or they want you to feel compassionate about for them. That's all most people share. I'm the same way. Like
yeah,
it's like
because
I
there's
don't I
ulterior
don't share
motives, right?
I don't share everything with people. It's like I share certain people, I share certain things with, other people I share other things with.
Right.
Um, and it's just that's how we relate to each other. But
Yeah.
when it comes to me self-reflecting, I always try to have an honest conversation with myself and say, "Oh, you know what? No, I do need to make a change in this area. I do need to, okay, I need to be going to bed a little bit earlier because it's affecting my sleep, or in the morning I'm not feeling groggy or whatever, right?"
Hmm.
The interesting thing is that when you start to get your body into a pattern and you get your mind into this pattern, everything kind of falls into place with this rhythm. And that's why it's called like the five rhythms as opposed to just the five elements. It's also called the five rhythms because these are the rhythms of the body. Each organ has its own rhythm,
Right.
right? And we'll see this whenever I go into the other elements individually. You'll start to see how this. Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. I
Yeah.
talk about the tendons and ligaments. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I'm a wood element. My natural self is wood. My As I get older, I'll grow into more wood,
Mm-hmm.
but my social self is very earthy.
Okay.
So that tends to create this environment of like I get frustrated with stuff and then I worry about being frustrated on it because it may not be good enough. Like it tends to fall into create these little scenarios for me that I'm like, okay, but finding that understanding, I pick up on it before it gets to the point to where I'm ready to pull my hair out, right?
Right. You
So
notice it and you're like, oh, wait. Okay.
yeah, but it takes
Uh-huh.
a lot of it's a lot of self-discipline and it's a lot of just paying attention to yourself and watching
Mm-hmm.
yourself and listening to yourself. And then I'll bring into like the Ayurvedic piece of it, being I'm a Virgo and so that's the earth element. So then I always try to figure out is like, well, what does these traditional Chinese medicine have to do with the Ayurvedic piece
Mm-hmm.
of it? How does that work together and everything it all seems to work together. But I don't have a full answer for you, but I can put it together for you, if I do a session with you or if I do anything, which I think I've done. I think I've done a reading for you, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I
You
think I've
sure
done
did.
that. And
And
so
what?
that's like the first thing
Mm-hmm.
that I do with people whenever they request, an energy balance or anything like that. Is like, let me get your elemental profile,
Mm-hmm.
because that's going to give me the most insight as to, what you're dealing with versus what I'm seeing, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I got some deeper understanding into it.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense too, because there's but and then the next question I had is like with all the information that you gave today, and you had a lot of really good points and stuff like that. If there's anything like overall, kind of a general overview, what would you want the newbies like myself to get out of this?
I would just say absorb the information and then, definitely find out what your bodily constitutional element is. Um, and then as we go further into this, should I go further into each element? I'm actually going to give you, okay, these types of foods can help for balancing the element, these types of herbs, this types of physical activities, right? I'm going to give you some very good ways of working with the element yourself. Because and that's what I want get people to get out of it is that self-care really does come down to you making the right choices for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I mean, we can all go and um have all kinds of different taking different supplements and doing all this different stuff, right?
Right.
But, are you doing it in a way that it is conducive to you, or are you doing it in a way that it's conducive to whoever told you to do it, right? So,
Right.
if someone's not doing a full profile on you, it could be helpful, but then a lot of times it may not be because a lot of times it's just very general. And
Right.
so I like to take the being general out of it and customize it for you, right?
Gotcha. So when people do book sessions with you, you can go through those details and look at what element they are and kind of let them know.
Yes. And I give
Gotcha.
them good recommendations. And now, just because I say something is say that they're a water element, and oh, the this is the most like there could be some foods that are the most beneficial for water elements. Well, just because your water element doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to be out of balance.
Right.
So I do need
Mm-hmm.
to put that preface in there. Is like a lot of times that's where stuff is starting,
Mm-hmm.
but you may need to balance out other stuff before getting to that. So it might be, okay, water is going to affect, if we're looking here, water will affect metal, right? So say that your bladder is out of balance. Well, guess what? The lungs are probably going to be, hey, okay, there's a lot of anxiety. You might have a lot of anxiety going on with that, or you get a lot of a chest congestion. So we need to alleviate that first to get to the water piece of it. Because if you just work the water piece of it, it may help,
Right.
but physically it may not, right? You may want to work with the other stuff first. But from a meridian perspective, what I have found is, say, I gave the example of, oh, the small intestine was out of balance.
Right.
Or should I say the small intestines was like overly young or something like that. And so I would do like elemental testing and I would find that, oh, liver is actually under energy. Small intestine is actually over energy. Okay. Oh, okay. That gives me a good sense of okay, let me go sedate or actually strengthen the liver. And then all
Right.
of a sudden the small intestine actually comes back down to middle. So from a meridian perspective, there's things I can do, but that doesn't change the fact that your daily habits are XYZ.
Right.
Your food intake is, I eat, but then I don't eat, or I do this or I do that, right? It's like fire people that are fire elements tend to not eat because they're
Hmm.
just not hungry.
Right.
They're the ones that eat the least, at least from my experience, from what I've noticed with people. And then wood elements are they eat pretty good, but they still tend to not. Um, they tend to eat whatever, and they tend to be more carb based.
Right.
And I don't know why. Like it's like I'm craving carbs like all the time. But then you get to like people that are stomach spleen. They love protein. Like they're just because and it makes sense because the you think about the muscle, or should I say the tissue is muscle. And
Right.
what does the muscle want? The muscle wants protein. The muscle wants, you
Right.
know,
To build.
nutrients.
Right.
And that's where it gets most of the nutrients. And that's not to say that like the tendons and ligaments don't want protein, but it's more of a collagen. It's more of a um, mineral based um, tissue in
Right.
my experience, and I could be, I mean, I am not a, how do you put it? I don't have any degrees well, I do have a holistic nutrition certification, but that's about as far as I went with it. So it's like the nutritional stuff that I understand are going to be more basic and geared towards finding balance and
Right.
not really towards, um, the overall, well, you need this and you need that supplement. Like I can go find that
R-
information out, but
Right.
my recommendation is going to be more for finding the balance. And then once you find the balance, your craving should tell you what you need and what you don't need.
Gotcha. Yeah. So wow, there's a lot of what do you call it's very complex. A lot of different things
It can
that
be.
could, yeah, because you got
It can be.
energy for the different organs. You got just cyclical patterns going on. You have whatever we're
Yeah.
introducing to our internal environment that is either helping or hurting or
Right.
balancing or unbalancing. And then that just makes me think about, we just mentioned nutrition, exercise, meditation, all these different elements. And so some of these things are now, as we're talking about this, is making sense so that as you're, you know, doing sessions and then recommending exercises, those exercises are supposed to help get the
Yeah. Get the
get those
energy flowing.
patterns, energy
So,
flowing.
so, and when we
Uh,
talk about sessions, I do energy coaching is what I call it.
mhm.
In person, I'll do an energy balance, physical energy balance. But if I do anything online, it's going to be more energy coaching. So just so anyone that's watching this understands, is like when we talk about me doing a session, it's an energy coaching session where I do a lot of assessments and we have conversation, and then I give recommendations based on the findings of it. So
Right.
just so everyone knows. Um, but I was going to say there's also the mental piece that comes into all of this. I mean, I've been talking about the physical attributes of all this stuff, but there's a consciousness piece of this that comes into it. Not only the emotional anger, but with anger you may get some. Um, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'll actually wait. I don't want to give too much. I don't want to
Right.
give too much in one video.
Right.
Just kind of keep the discussion a little bit light, and
Right.
then I'll go deeper into all of the different like type of consciousness issues you can get into with each element as well. Being out of balance, and again, these are about being out of balance and finding the balance within the out of balance, and making turning that chaos into um, something that you can use for moving forward in life.
Right. Understood. Yeah, that's all the questions I had for today. But it's this is so exciting to learn this new information and learn about these things. Just because as I self reflect, I'm just like it just comes some of the conversations
Yeah.
that we've had and stuff like it just comes
Oh,
right back
oh
out, and
no,
I'm
it
just like,
starts
wow, I
to
do
make
that.
sense. And you mentioned something earlier that is like how complex this stuff is. And it's not that it's specifically complex, it's just that there's a lot of information and there's a lot of puzzle pieces that go in
Mm,
with it. Now, the interesting thing is that I'm going to do the five elements and each five element, and I'll go through the meridians. So the meridians are an energy center, one of the energy centers of the body. One of the other things I will we'll probably make videos on is maybe the chakras. I'll kind of talk about how the chakras tie into the meridians. I'm not, I work with chakras quite a bit, um, and but I'm not like, I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on the chakras. I just kind of understand how they fit and how they work to kind of how you would want to balance them to find balance within the body as well. And then of
Right.
course the auric field, which ties into the chakras um and actually the meridians and all that stuff. And then within the meridians, you also have what's called the strange flows or the eight vessels, which feeds the meridians. So there's yeah, so there, I mean, there's a lot that goes into this when you're learning it and for teaching it. Um, and so one of the other things is, we'll do the sounds with each element. Um, but there will also be anyone out there watching. Let me go to, sorry, stop sharing this. Or am I still sharing that?
No, you're not
Okay.
sharing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was still sharing because it was still
No.
up on my screen.
Okay.
We are still recording. Um, there'll be some actual exercise videos coming out, and they're not really exercise. It's more of like a seasonal. Um, I guess this is the other thing, and actually didn't bring that up. So each season has a specific protocol for balancing and keeping balance throughout that season. So there will be some other additional videos coming out with these different protocols and learning how you can use them for yourself and just um, be, create self mastery.
Right. And also just in the exercises that I've done that we've done together, I just noticed like in my day, as I went through the rest of my day, I just felt lighter, and felt more focused, and was able to just kind of make a plan for myself at the beginning of the day after the session, the exercise session, and then just move through the day like cut through the day, got what I needed done, accomplished, felt productive, and that kind of thing. So I
Yep.
want to keep doing it.
Way to start your day. And in another video, what I may do is, the best way to kind of start your day. Um, Actually, we can kind of end it with that. I'm not going to show anything right now,
Right.
but the best idea is in the morning is you want to sit, stand, and then move. And then in the evening, you want to move, stand, and then sit. So it's like you're bringing yourself up, you're bringing yourself down.
Right.
And so the best idea is like you get up in the morning first thing and you do a sitting meditation, and then you move that into a standing meditation, and then you do some movements. And then in the evening, you kind of do your movements, do a standing meditation, and then sitting meditation. Now, do I do that every day? Not really. It's like I'll usually get up in the morning, I do my morning meditation. There's a little bit of movement within it, but then I usually get up and then I do some exercises and stuff like that. And then in the evening, I usually just do my sitting meditation and go to bed. Um,
Hmm.
but I'm already wound down at that point. But if you really want to get strict with yourself on this, I mean that would be a good thing to kind of follow.
Right. I get you. Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm trying to work on my routine and adding that in. So I definitely like where it's going. Even just the beginning of it. So I'd like to see
Sweet
where it
man.
progresses to, and see how it goes.
All right, there, Mr. Smith. I think we are
Yep.
done for this episode.
Okay. Thank you for the lesson, Mr. Brother Blues in.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for listening and putting up with me and asking
No.
asking some questions. And again, look for I will link I guess in the I guess you can look in the bio, or actually I'll link in the comments how you can get a hold of me if you'd like to request a session, or if you'd like more information. I'll also put a link into um, as to if you have any questions, just comment on there and shoot the questions. Where you can find me, the different links for my different social media pages as well, and all the information for again getting a hold of me is in my bio.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm Brother BrothaBluZen,
I'm Mr. Smith.
and always follow your Zen.